This is the second video in the series on the mathematics of vectors. The first video had to do with multiplying a vector by a scalar. This video is going to concentrate on the adding and subtracting of vectors, specifically graphical methods, the tip-to-tail method. The mathematical method of using components will be dealt with in a later video. Let's take two vectors, a and b, and add them together. Now I should note for adding and subtracting vectors, you can only add or subtract vectors of the same quantity. In other words, you can add or subtract forces to other forces, accelerations to other accelerations, but you can't add things like force to acceleration. It has to be the same quantity with the same units. The notation we use is similar to the notation we use for regular addition and subtraction. We'll write C is equal to A plus B with the vector arrows over top the A, B, and C. But one thing to keep in mind is that C is the vector sum of A and B. Direction will matter, as I'll show in the upcoming example. It's not like just adding two numbers together. To demonstrate, let's take a vector A. That'll be 5 meters per second to the right, so a velocity vector. So I'll write it down and draw it as an arrow. And we'll take vector B to be a velocity of 7 meters per second, but directed downwards. So let's add these two vectors together, and we'll call that vector C. So C will be A plus B. But one thing we have to keep in mind is C will have a magnitude and a direction. Now, most of us, from the time we were in elementary school, learned to add things together by, well, adding them together. So you might think on first glance that, hey, we'll just add the magnitudes of these two vectors together, and thus we'll get a magnitude for C of 12 meters per second. However, this would be incorrect. The directions of A and B matter, and when you're adding two vector quantities together, direction will play a huge role, as we'll see coming up. Now, as I alluded to before, there are two different ways to add vectors together. There's the graphical method that involves drawing things to scale. There's also a mathematical way to do it that involves vector components, and that usually involves trigonometry. We'll be dealing with that in an upcoming video. In the next video, we will learn how to add and subtract vectors using the graphical tip-to-tail method. There's a link to that video on the screen right now, as well as a button you can use to subscribe to my channel. Thanks for watching, and have a great day.